Hello, this is Statler Smith. You are watching one installment of a weekly series where I write an essay about something that's on my mind, record myself speaking that essay, and then upload that video to YouTube. For reasons set forth in the initial video in this series, this is a practice for myself. As such, this video will likely not be entertaining or particularly educational. Perhaps one day I will have value to add to others, but in the words of Aragorn, King of Gondor, it is not this day. If you choose to keep watching, feel free to give feedback on the clarity of thought and speech, as that is what I am trying to improve. Please let me know if you have undergone a similar journey or have tips to share. And who knows, maybe I will eventually add more video editing. With that, let's get into this week's essay.
I have been thinking recently about character, particularly what contributes to our sense of whether somebody else is a good person. Is there somebody in your life who, upon consideration, you can sense their goodness? It's hard to explain, but you can just tell. You can tell. They have the vibe. I want to examine that a little bit because I hate the word vibe. So unclear. But we'll see if I can learn anything. I call it character, and I'm sure Calvin's dad from Calvin and Hobbes already knows all about this. So let's see if we can find something else as well. I think of character as one of those vague personal qualities or traits, the type that aren't easily nailed down. It seems to relate to, yet be separate from other qualities, such as resilience, kindness, and hard workingness. In attempting to define character, I'm reminded of my attempt to define morality. Perhaps that's because people often use the term moral character for what I'm trying to describe. For now, I'm going to try out the following definition of character: the quality built by overcoming challenges. Of course, this has a couple of aspects that we need to inspect to see if it fits. First is the challenges piece, right? To gain character, one must have challenges to overcome. When I was in high school, I became somewhat obsessed with the leadership and self-improvement books. The material I read always told a story about somebody, an individual, who had achieved whatever degree of success in spite of the challenges that they had faced. Many of the authors went as far as to claim that it was the challenges that vaulted them to that level of success. Michael Jordan was cut from the basketball team. I think he was cut from his high school basketball team, and he went on to become arguably the greatest basketball player in history. Helen Keller was blind and deaf, and she went on to become a speaker and a writer. Abraham Lincoln was not voted in as a senator for a number of times, and he eventually became the president of the United States. All of these individuals had something that could have held them back, right? A challenge that they overcame. For a few years, I felt envious of them, of the people that had challenges in their lives. I still do to a certain degree. It's changed a little bit. I looked at my life and I found few challenges. I had two parents who loved me and tried their best to be good parents. I grew up with enough to eat. I was in a community where I felt welcome. I had opportunities to play sports, learn music, and do well academically. I never felt pressured and still don't feel pressured to do drugs or drink alcohol. In fact, the only challenge I seemed to face was an enduring sense of loneliness, but it's pretty mild. It wasn't really depression. It was just I kind of felt lonely even when I was around people. Um, but that's that's nothing compared to what some of these other people go through. And as a result of this perceived lack of challenge in my life, I felt as though I would never be able to reach the heights of character portrayed in the lives of those whose stories I was reading. I felt as though life had robbed me of the opportunity to achieve my full potential. Of course, my perspective has changed a bit since then, as life gives us challenges. But there's a little ember of that envy that remains. Um, but, okay, putting aside my own, probably irrational envy of challenges, um, somebody can only overcome challenges if they have them. That's the main point. Part of the change in my perspective is I can make my own challenges, right? Life didn't give me a deadbeat dad, so I compensated by challenging myself at school. Life didn't give me a chronic disease, so I compensated by challenging myself to be healthy. Life didn't, life didn't give me challenges, and so I found ways to challenge myself. This always felt a little hollow. My compensating efforts never seemed sufficient. It never seemed to give me as much of a boost as would a challenge that I had no control over, right? And this is because there's a particular kind of character and a particular depth of character built by those who overcome a life challenge that is so obviously unfair. I was choosing all of my challenges and still choose a number of my challenges. Those in my life with strong character overcame challenges that they never chose. Chronic illness, family issues, growing up impoverished. They had these things holding them back, but they pushed past them and tried their best anyways. That's why I consider them to have high character. Now, all of this was to explore the first part of the definition. To build character, you need challenges. The second part of the definition is actually overcoming those challenges, right? To illustrate, I'll describe using the negative of some of the examples I had above. Somebody challenged with a chronic illness that constantly complains and uses the illness as an excuse to get out of being a good human has not overcome that challenge. Somebody challenged with family issues that still blames their parents for their problems has not overcome their challenge. Somebody who grew up with the challenge of poverty that still blames their lack of money as a child for their current issues as an adult has not overcome that challenge. Those problems, those issues, those challenges are still right in front of their eyes, regardless of how long ago they happened. Now, challenges occur in many parts of our lives. Some are internal, others are external. Character can encompass all of these. You overcome an internal challenge, you build character. An external challenge, you build character. The tactics look different, of course. Internal challenges are struggles to become the type of person that you want to be. One common challenge here is how effective we are as humans at lying to ourselves. I mean, of course I'm not, but everybody else is. I don't know if anybody has fully overcome that challenge. External challenges are a little bit easier to see, at least from outsiders' perspectives. They can be interpersonal or against the world. They can be the job that you want that you don't have, the bills that you need to pay. All kind of unfair types of challenge are usually external. We have, me versus me for internal, me versus you for external, and then me versus the world for also external. But regardless of the type of challenge, our character is built as we overcome the challenge. Now, how do we know if we have overcome the challenge? They cease to be challenges, at least in our mind. I think of this similar to, weightlifting. How do you know once you've gotten stronger, right? The weight that used to make you really tired and made you have to push really hard and made you sore no longer makes you sore. If it used to be 50 pounds, 75 pounds, 100 pounds, the stronger you get, the less that weight bothers you. It's a similar situation here. Once you've overcome a challenge, it doesn't bother you anymore. If you have a chronic illness, right? Accept it and move past it. Don't keep the challenge in the front of your mind all the time. The challenge remains, of course. The illness, like if it's chronic, the word chronic means it stays with you. But it doesn't need to dominate your mental space. It doesn't need to define your relationship. It doesn't need to determine your identity. For difficult family relationships, you've overcome the challenge if you've forgiven your family and realize that they probably also need to forgive you. Not all the time, but sometimes. Their neglect is no longer on the forefront of your mind. That's how you know you've overcome it. It's like you just forget about it. This relates to something that is a problem for me, is that if once I do something, I consider it easy because I've overcome that challenge, right? And if I can do it, I believe anybody can do it. So, but that's how you know. That's how you know that you've overcome a challenge, is that you forget about it. Now, of course, the final part of the definition for me is the concept of building character. This indicates that a single challenge that you overcome does not result in a majestic skyscraper of character. Rather, each challenge that you overcome adds a brick, a window, some scaffolding, electricity, some plumbing, um, pieces of character, but never the entire structure at one time. Of course, larger challenges put more pieces down, but no challenge can erect a whole building at one time. Only by continuously overcoming challenges can one build a respectable character and maintain that character for the duration of their life. So where's your character at? Are you pushing yourself to overcome the challenges in your life? Are you content with the character you have? These are good questions. I ask myself these. I may include an essay about them. I'm not sure. Um, I don't have a whole lot of challenges in my life that I've overcome, so probably be a pretty boring essay, pretty short. All this being said, I've talked about character with the definition. I wonder if maybe competence would be a better word to describe it, but it doesn't quite grasp the moral aspect that I'm looking for. So if you have a better definition of character or a different word that fits what I'm describing, let me know. But until then, have a good week.